we're not going to do them in any particular order. I'm just going to talk about them how I want. First one I'm going to bring up is actually one of my new favorite books. It is The Forever War. And I was just looking on Reddit after reading the Bobiverse because I just wanted some more science fiction. I was in the mood for some sci-fi, and this one kept coming up on lists. And I think I bought it in like December. I didn't read it that month, but I read it last month, and it was incredible. Just for a basic premise, so we can talk about it. Humans discover that there's alien life out there, and they go to war with them. But because of time dilation, you go out to war, and it takes 3 months to get to the planet to fight the aliens. But on Earth, like 50 years have passed, and it's about them coming back, getting used to this new society that is far different from the one they left. Throughout the book, you get longer and longer time periods where they're coming back like hundreds of years later. And it was really interesting. I thought it was just going to be like a metaphor for PTSD, but it actually ended up being a lot more than that. There's a lot of stuff about how cultural views on sexuality change, the perception of it, and kind of a similar vibe to the book we're going to talk about next. But yeah, there's just a lot of just things you wouldn't think that would change in society that actually do over the course of like hundreds or even longer time periods. There's a lot of cool stuff with space travel, and then it's very like anti-military, but it has some very interesting ways of displaying like leadership and how you may hate the way things are done, but once you get to those levels, it's like, well, this is kind of like the only way I know how to do it, so I'm going to do it the same way that I'm going to lead these men the same way that I was led. Even if I don't agree with the practice, I know it works because I survived, so I'm just going to go with that. A lot of just really insightful things as to why things are done the way they're done. And of course, it's sci-fi, so there's a ton of stuff with like figuring out who the aliens are. They're left mostly in the dark for most of the book, but you can kind of get little bits and pieces, how they fight, how they interact with each other, how they communicate, what their technology is like. That stuff is all very interesting as well. I was talking about with how cultural norms determine how certain behaviors are perceived. We can move on to Song of Achilles, which I also read. I just had a really good month of reading. I read some great books. Song of Achilles was incredible. Drake actually recommended me this one, and I'm so glad I picked it up. It's about the story of Achilles, Troy, the Iliad, all that, but it's from the perspective of his lover Patroclus, and basically just go through their entire relationship from meeting up until the end of Achilles' life, and it is like one of the most beautifully written stories I've ever read. The prose in this is just incredible. You're gonna love, if you pick this up, you're gonna love reading it. It's so much fun to just read the words on the page just because of how they're laid out. And you get a lot of the Greek mythos stuff, which is really fun too, and you get to see kind of how their society runs itself and how important honor is in their society and how that influences all the decisions they make. And you do get actually a good bit of the politics behind the Trojan War, which is exciting. I read Troy by Stephen Fry, and that's a much more in-depth look at it, but this one is nice to just focus on like one or two characters like Achilles and Patroclus and see their perception of the Trojan War and how they see it. And Achilles sees it in a much more like selfish way. He's kind of seeing like what he can get from the Trojan War in terms of honor and glory. Where it goes to someone like Agamemnon or Ajax, they see it in a different way. And it's just cool to see that contrast. And also, of course, the best part of the book is Achilles and Patroclus' relationship and how that develops throughout the book. And it gets very emotional. Another book I read, well, it's not a book, actually. It's a graphic novel series, White Sands. I told you I'd be starting the Cosmere, and the part that I read for January was White Sands, which is, I think it's, you don't have to read it first, but it's chronologically first, so I just decided to read it. And it was pretty good. It's kind of like a light story, not that much happens. I think the characters come back at some point in the Cosmere, so I'm assuming this is like some sort of backstory for them. I didn't really enjoy the art style. If you look at it, it's kind of like, it kind of looks bad. I mean, I know that's the style. It's like, but it just kind of makes the characters look like angry and like distorted a lot of the time. But all their powers and stuff was really cool, and it was cool to see like the politics of a society that has like basically like mages in it, but they're not like the main governing body of the society, and just see how they exist with all these normal people. I would recommend it, but just know you're not going to get like the best story ever, but for a 3-volume graphic novel, it was pretty good for what it was. And then the last book we're going to talk about is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We should be doing a podcast on this one soon. I'll just give some brief thoughts. I actually didn't love this one as much as I thought I would. I actually bought the Ultimate Edition because I was like, oh, I'm going to read all 5, but I barely made it through the first one. I don't know if it's because I had watched the movie before and I kind of knew what was coming, but it really just like did not hold my interest. I enjoyed it while I was reading it, and I couldn't. It's so short. I could barely get through it. I think it's just because it's not what I want from science fiction. It is more of a comedy book where sci-fi is just kind of the background, but I want like discovery and science and stuff in science fiction, and because everything is kind of a joke in this one, it really sucks the air out of that element of the book. I don't know, I guess I just like more hard sci-fi, and Hitchhiker just really didn't do that for me. It is funny, it's dry British comedy, which is some of my favorite, but I think I was looking forward to more sci-fi, and I didn't get that. I was kind of disappointed. But yeah, that's everything I felt was worth talking about. I don't know if I'll do one of these every month, maybe once every couple months when I feel like I have some really good books that I want to talk about. I might end up doing some video essays on Song of Achilles or the Forever War, but this is just kind of like a casual mentioning of them because they deserve, just so if you want a recommendation without going full on like into the nitty gritty of the book. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. I can let Lulu get away from me now, and I'll see you guys next time.